this year, for the first time, I believe, everyone who received hospitality funding was cut by 15%. So there's already $8,500 in the budget to do red, white, and blue. We would like to not ask you for any more money. And I'd like to say that maybe we won't have to spend any more money, but I figure you would rather me ask you here than come back later and say, uh-oh, I should have asked for money. In the additional $8,500, we feel like that we would like to request an additional $10,000 in hospitality funds that may or may not be used. And I can assure you, we will do everything we can to not use that money. We feel like that we can, in program revenues, we can raise $18,000 plus and hopefully more. The one thing that's real, well, there's two things that's a variable. As with any outdoor event, if you're looking at ticket sales, we could always run into trouble. Should the R word happen, and we don't like to say that in our business, should the R word happen, you know, of course we could run into not having the ticket sales. The other variable that we're not sure yet, because we've not started working on this yet, is we're not sure sponsorship-wise how much was raised because it was a college event and the money went for fundraising, or how much was raised because it was a wonderful community celebration. That's the one variable that we're not sure about, because like I said, we haven't got permission to proceed with this, so we haven't started on that yet. We do feel like it is a very, as I mentioned, it's very well loved in the community, and most of the corporate sponsors, or a lot of the corporate sponsors, we feel like will continue to participate. We already had one, just reading what's been in the paper, that have called us and said, you know, hope the city does it, I'm in. So the fundraising piece and the ticket sale piece, that's the two variables really that we're not sure about. What we'd like to do is get your permission to proceed with the event. And then, of course, we'll come back and evaluate it to see if it becomes an annual programming thing for us. Any questions? I was kind of quick. I was trying to hit the highlights.
Any questions? Councilman Spangler?
Which budget year would this come out of, Ms. Murphy?
It's all, well, actually, it was last.
It would have to come out of, it would be an advance from the fund balance, hospitality fund balance.
The 10,000, the other budget's already there.
So in other words, we're taking what would have occurred in June, moving that to July 3rd into a new budget year?
And Chris may have to jump in, but the way I anticipate this event occurs in the first of our new fiscal year. We would typically budget for all fiscal year expenses as part of the budget preparation going forward. This year, that we have not prepared and the council has not taken action on. So the assumption was that we would have $8,500, was what was in the current, this year's budget. It's already should have been expensed for last year's event. And then the potential is that you would have to take $10,000, up to $10,000 out of the fund balance. The council will recall we projected the fund balance. The number that you saw is the 1.2. We had projected after all the movement as a reserve, as a hospitality reserve, of about $750,000. And that number is holding true. We have $750,000 accounts in cash that's being held as a reserve for hospitality. We did that in anticipation of a shortfall, revenue shortfall. So there's funds to work with, available funds to work with, should council approve it. Now, as you look at next year's budget request, you may decide that project revenues, project ongoing obligations, you may decide that, if you're willing, the council may decide to pull additional funds from that fund balance to fund other programs. So you're getting ahead of the process a little bit. But technically answer your question, $8,500 was assuming that it was in this year. It was in this year's budget. We would assume that they would go forward for next year, but we anticipated an additional $10,000 for the event. If we had bad luck with ticket sales, sponsorship, or anything else, we hope that it could be done for less, but I thought it was prudent to have some reserve in the budget so that the council understands.
Do we have any idea of approximately what this will cost? Because your action requested, it says a recommendation will be made to City Council on whether to continue Red, White, and Boom as a city event. After 2010, actual costs have been determined.
And I put together, this number is based on a real budget. I put together a detailed budget, that I submitted, and, you know, again, there's some variables because this would be our first time of doing it, but I feel like this budget that we have of $36,650 is very real.
Does this include overtime for any fire
Yes,
and public safety?
I have budgeted overtime as well. One thing I did want to mention and talk about budget years, one thing that I would try to do if the city is in charge of the programming is always have it much closer to the 4th of July. That was something that the date was very flexible. Sometimes it was as much, it has been in past years as much as almost a week prior to the Independence Day holiday. And that's something that we received numerous complaints about, and people always, or they would call us the day after and say, when's the 4th of July celebration? And we would say yesterday. And so that's something that we would recommend, trying to have it much closer to the 4th, and even if not on the 4th actually. This year the 4th is on a Sunday, so our first thought was, okay, that probably with the 4th of July, and we depend so much in partnering with First Baptist with their parking lot and the church going on, we felt like this year that the 4th, doing it actually on the 4th was not that that good of an idea. So we would look at doing it July 3rd, and I imagine that changed the budget too, because sometimes it was in July and sometimes it was in June. But I think the money, it's there that has not been spent for the next month.
James, do you know off this year's current 8,500 students spending?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
What I'm hearing, Joe, is that it's not been expended, so the additional expense to conduct the event this year would be up to what we think is the cost of number is up to $10,000.
But I can assure you we'll strive to not spend that money.
In terms of the time factor here, I know it's somewhat late in the preparation aspect of this. And plus, the big event of the year is Spring Fling.
Right.
I'm curious and I'm concerned that the closeness of this to Spring Fling, how are you gonna be able to accommodate that?
As I mentioned before, if we had not been intimately involved before, I would be concerned taking on a brand new event. But our entire city staff, Parks and Rec staff, fire, Mike Gelazin is here, public safety, we were all very involved with the coordination of this event. We weren't seeking the sponsorships, we weren't doing some of the detailed planning like we do for some of our other events. But as far as the overall planning, we were very involved. We managed to go to red, white, and blue meetings during Spring Fling, our planning. The other thing the reason I feel like we can handle it is that you may recall we actually decided, council, we're not having the Shamrocks in the Square this year. That event was cut out. After 2 years of rain, we decided, okay. So we were kind of, like, whew, good, that's more planning we can do for our other events. With that said, we feel very capable of being able to do it, and the community, they'll see as good of an event as they've always.
Will this be the same format as we've seen in years past, concert, fireworks?
What I'm recommending this year, you may recall that Red, White, and Blue started out with the local symphony. Then as the years progressed, they brought in some very big name acts that had huge crowds at Barnett Park. Then last year, and because of funding issues, they went back to a much smaller, scaled back, had the Spartanburg Community Band and a local band. To be perfectly honest, we weren't sure how it was going to go. It was still huge, and we've come to realize that the community really is it's really all about the fireworks, it's about Independence Day, it's about the celebration of community, I think just as much as it is who the act was. This year, we would recommend staying more with local, just until we have one under our belts. If we see if we're able to raise sponsorship money very easily, if the people are there, I would love to look at going back to bringing a name act, just because Barnett Park's deserving of having some big name entertainment. with the, what's going on right now with the improvements. And by the way, that'll be some of the savings in the budget. We won't have to rent portable restrooms because we're gonna have brand new restrooms there. There's some other improvements that are gonna make a difference that'll give us, that we'll be able to realize some cost savings. So,